Welcome everybody to Hiker's Dream. This is Val with Mimi, the co-host here, and we're interviewing Bob Pritchard today. And the show is about promoting hikers, hiking, and the environment. So let's start with Bob first and your background, and just give us an update about what you're doing as well at this point.
Sure, Val. Bob Pritchard here. I'm coming to you from the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I've hiked twice today through the snow. It was in the teens Fahrenheit wise. I understand you're in Mexico. Maybe it's Celsius there, but yeah. In any case, it's early winter conditions here. Yeah, I've enjoyed hiking for quite some time, but it really wasn't until I retired that I tried to take it to another level. And I spent, just as a quick aside, I spent my career in technology and cybersecurity, traveled the world, but I've been retired for about 6 years now, 5 or 6 years, and I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2018, and I finished the Pacific Crest Trail, or PCT, this year. And I could go into some details about that. It took me more than one effort, which was a story in itself to complete it. I also hiked the Vermont Long Trail last fall, which is a smaller trail, but still quite enjoyable. That was like 350 miles. But I enjoy being out in nature and simplifying my life and just my thought process by getting away from civilization, if you can call it that.
What did you become more aware of once you did get away from civilization? What have you become more aware of and recognized more of?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I'll start with my why. I start with why I hike because I thought it'd be a fantastic physical challenge and a mental challenge, and I love views from mountaintops, and who doesn't like all of those things? But I think to condense it, I think what I found once I started hiking is I certainly enjoyed the views and the mental and physical challenges, but what I found was something altogether different than what I had expected, and that's why I've kept at it now. I'm on I've completed my third a long distance hike, and hopefully I'll do several more. And that is just a sense of peace as you leave your traditional existence behind, the workaday world and endless emails and phone calls and interruptions. I think long distance hiking, in particular when you're on the trail for days and weeks and months at a time, it tends to strip away all those things from civilization that perhaps aren't as important and in fact are somewhat new to humans over the last 100 years or so, whether it be emails, phone calls, worries about what's going on at home, what's going on in the world. Most of the news media is pretty negative with wars and suffering and environmental degradation. And so as all those things were stripped away from me on my hike, I spent less time thinking about the things that mattered less. And what I thought about was where I tried to really focus on being present, not spending time thinking about what's going to happen a month from now, but thinking about what am I doing today? Where am I going today? What's the weather situation? What's my food and water situation? When will I resupply? And what's my body feeling like? What do I need to do to maintain that? But then after I put aside those things, I was able to really immerse myself in all these other senses. And, prior to long distance hiking, I thought it was just about what my eyes could see from a mountaintop. And, those things are amazing as well. The Pacific Crest Trail is rife with amazing views. It's just an otherworldly experience that everyone should have a chance to experience and explore. But it's not just that. It's all the senses. What you're feeling, what your feet are feeling, what you smell. I love smelling forests and the smell of pine trees and spruce and other things, just the smells and the sounds of wildlife, birds often, or water when you come across it sporadically on the Pacific Crest Trail. Just all those sights and sounds and smells and touches, and all of those things are really quite satisfying. And I would say that I didn't listen to music. I didn't listen to books when I was hiking. I was just looking around, thinking about what I'm experiencing. And I just found it incredibly peaceful. And I've never slept so well as I sleep in the dirt, if you will, in my sleeping pad, with my quilt. By the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I've had my fill of just beautiful sights and experiences. And I would say there's less floating around in my brain, so less noise, less interruptions. And just maybe to expand upon that, it was something that happened to me on the Appalachian Trail. As many hikers experience, I injured myself pretty quickly. My feet were just throbbing. I hadn't done enough hiking before I hit the trail. And it turns out I had stress fractures in both feet, which was rather painful. And I happened to go into a bookstore in Damascus, Virginia, 472 miles. The mileage stuck in my head because it was an important stop for me. And I picked up a book called The Miracle of Mindfulness, which was written by a Buddhist monk who was one of the originators of this whole notion of mindfulness. And it's really about uncluttering your mind and how well that dovetailed with everything I was doing, what I was leaving behind. But it also gave me a means to lessen the pain that I was feeling in my feet. And so in a nutshell, I didn't ignore the pain. I didn't try and to leave it behind. Excuse me. But what I said to myself is, the pain is just one aspect of what I'm experiencing. And what I'm experiencing, 95% is incredible. It's the trail, it's the people, it's the smells, the sights and the sounds. And so I put everything in a box, and I would contemplate my feet a couple of times a day for 10 or 15 minutes, and I would feel the pain and the rage. And then I would put it back in the box and put it aside and go on to fully explore and fully immerse myself in the trail itself, and camaraderie, times of fellow hikers, and the sights and the smells and the whole experience. So yeah, that's a long-winded introduction.
Well, you'd be a great commercial for hiking. You articulated that very well, Bob.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And you could also be a labor coach for women, because that's kind of what you have to do when you're in labor. Like, you really try to, distance yourself from the pain. And
sure.
So you could have a baby someday, Bob.
Maybe. Although at my age, I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm a guy.
I like your point about being in the now. And we tend to do that when we're hiking. We don't have all these distractions from city life and the systems that are basically controlling our lives. So we get an objective viewpoint. We get to stand back and be a chance to compare, what life was maybe for the indigenous people as compared to what we're living now in techno world, So it's
absolutely
time to disengage. And again, you said about the thoughts and ideas. People tend to, from my seat, they live in their ideas. So that could be a benefit, or else it could be a detriment, because it's not real. Whereas hiking, you're into survival. You're hungry, you're cold, uncomfortable. So it's more real than an idea. You're no longer an idea.
Yes.
You're actually in the field, and you're with the environment. So in a sense, it is a good, healing therapy just a chance to, again, to compare, because most people don't get into nature enough. So they don't have a comparison, and they think this is reality, living in the city.
Exactly. Completely agree. And, when I finished, after I set my sights on the Appalachian Trail. I'm from the East Coast, and many hikers think, oh, I got to do the AT. And so that was the most obvious one that came to mind. And a long distance hike often marks a transition for 90+% of the people that are out there. They're young men and women, and they're going from, say, university before they get that first job, the first big career job, and it's a transition. And then there's another group that's retirees that had perhaps just retired, and we're transitioning to something. And so that was what I experienced. But I would say as well that after I did that first hike, before I started it and while I was doing it, I thought, well, this is one and done. I came home. Of course, I was pretty sore, exhausted, and I finished. I started February 25th, finished July 21st, 2018 on my AT hike. And by around Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I started saying to myself, I've never felt so peaceful and in such comfort with myself and my place in this world than I did on the trail when I had the fewest of possessions, and everything that mattered to me was on my back. And I covet that simplicity. And in the world of technology that I was in, cybersecurity, was stopping the bad guys, making money, accumulating possessions, and I was immersed in all of that. And I think when I got to about 45 or 50, I have 2 million air miles. So I have a terrible environmental footprint. And that also means that I've been away from my family an enormous amount of time. And then I realized when I was in my late 40s and 50s that wife and child, a son who's now 25, and I said, I've invested too little of my limited energy in experiences versus, additions, collections, purchases. And so I did a real mind shift saying I have to invest more in experiences with my family, by myself, all of these things. And my wife reminded me, we're dog lovers, and my wife runs a dog shelter. And my rescue dog is sitting around here somewhere. Hopefully she's not chewing on furniture, which she might. It's a new rescue. But my wife has pointed out that dogs are always fully present, and they're not worried about what's going to happen 3 days from now. They just want to have a great experience. And, humans can't always live that way, but there's something to be learned from the most noblest of creatures, the ones that love you dearly. And so I look to my dog, and sometimes dogs that I foster others, with admiration for their ability to be present and centered and not worry about too much what's going to happen in the future or maybe what's happened in the past.
Do people take their dogs on the AT like they do the PCT?
Sometimes you see that, but I think there are, being a dog person, I have feelings about that, opinions. I think there are sections, there's sections that they're not allowed altogether. In the Smoky Mountains, no dogs are allowed. And Baxter State Park, no dogs are allowed on Katahdin. And then even though dogs are allowed in the White Mountains, the climbing at times resembles something of a more technical climbing nature. It's pretty precarious that I think maybe dogs aren't suited for that. So it certainly could readily join you on parts of the trail, but Val, as you may know, and Mimi knows, is that humans are quite unique in that we can traverse huge amounts of mileage when trained, and that not all dogs are equipped to hike 20 miles a day with carrying their food and some of their supply. So, yeah, I think
gave me a business idea though.
Yeah.
What if, because I want to support hikers, maybe we'll let them bring their dogs for an extra fee, and the dog gets to ride in the car through the parts of the PCT where it's not good for a dog, and we'll be there for, if the dog has to go to a vet or something.
Yeah.
So that might appeal to people that are slower hikers. So
that's certainly a possibility. I mean, I think I love dogs in my heart, but one of the things I observe with people with dogs is they often would not pick up after their dogs on the trail. And
that would be
a hiker. You got to be focused on leave no trace. And the only things who deserve to leave behind their mess is bears and mountain lions and the animals that live there. So it is some people can carry it out. I think some people can't, but they, out of desire to be with their pet, they bring their dog anyways. So,
because you could bury the poop like you do human poop, right?
You could for sure. So
something to think about.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I want to bring my dog. You met my little dog.
Oh yes, yeah.
Little Speck.
Speck. That's right. I've got a picture of Speck sitting on my knee.
Cute.
He's a cutie. So yeah, no, but dogs and many animals live, non-human animals live, I think, a positive existence in that they're perhaps more focused on the present than most humans are.
Now, Mimi said you had a bear story you wanted to share?
Oh, I've had a couple of bear stories.
Okay.
So, Mimi, which one did I share with you?
The guy that you said you were worried about hiking the CDT because of bears, and then the guy said, "Oh, I was just on there," and
yeah. So just to be clear, I've had many encounters with black bears, including here where I'm, right out my window. In North Woodstock, New Hampshire, I've had bears in the yard all the time, and that suits me fine. I have large blueberry patches, and I used to try and protect them, but since that's part of their normal diet, now I say have at it. Let them have as many as they want. So I have bears and foxes and occasional moose in the yard, which I think is a wonderful thing. To the extent that they can be here, I welcome them. And black bears are. I've had encounters with black bears besides in my yard hiking. I had one stick his nose right up against my chest when I was trail running early in the morning here in New Hampshire. Came around a corner and there was a black bear who just come out of the river. Note to self: don't hike at sunrise, because that's when they're down at the river. But it sniffed my chest and scared the heck out of me, and then backed down and wandered away. I also had an encounter on the AT where a bear came up to my tent and was sniffing my tent while I was in it. And it was at a section of the AT. And surprisingly enough, in New Jersey, where people think it's just associated with the Garden State Parkway and refineries and terrible smells from the refineries. But in Western New Jersey, there are plentiful number of bears such that they often restrict access to the trail. And that's what happened when I had a bear come to my tent and stick his nose right up against the tent at, in the middle of the night, which was unnerving, but it caused no problem. But I happen to be, and I've had on the PCT, I have encountered bears a number of times, both in Northern California and in Washington State. I encountered quite a few in Northern California. And in particular, if you're hiking early in the morning, just like here in New Hampshire, that's when they're out about, especially during heat waves. They don't like the heat any more than we do. So I've had numerous encounters. One mom bluff charged me 2 years ago. That was frightening, because you don't know when a bluff charge turns into a charge. When they're close and they're running at you and they stop 5 or 8 feet from you. It's unnerving, to say the least. But the scenario that Mimi was referring to is, I happened to be at Kennedy Meadows, and I encountered a hiker who we were just talking about various trails. And I said, almost done the PCT. I've done the AT. I'd like to do the Continental Divide Trail, but I am a little wary of grizzly bears. And most animals don't bother me. I embrace seeing them, whether it be moose. I've encountered mountain lions, but certain things sort of have no, compunction against going after you. Bears, sharks, crocodiles, of that ilk.
My favorite.
Yeah, there you go. And then the person said, well, I hiked the CDT last year and I had a encounter with a grizzly bear. And I was like, wow, did you see it from a distance? He goes, no, I saw it up close and it attacked me. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
Love it.
And I said, you have to tell me about this. And so he said, well, I was hiking along not far from the trailhead. I came around the corner. I should have been making more noise because grizzlies were known to be in this area. And he said he had bear spray, but it all happened. He said the bear was on top of him before he realized, everything that was happening. But he came around a corner. There was a large bear, grizzly, and it jumped on him and took a few swipes at him. And he then took his hat off and he showed me a scar that he had from one end of his head to the other where the bear swiped his head. And he had some cosmetic surgery, but he said they stopped at a certain point. He says he wore it as a badge of honor. He had like a budding bald spot and it was widest at the top of his head.
Bob,
and I looked at it.
Bob, I've got to.
Yes.
I apologize, but our sponsors say we're running out of time, so we've got to continue this another time.
Okay, no worries.
But wonderful.
It was fascinating.
Wonderful interview. You've got great energy and stories, and I'd like to hear more.
Sure.
Send me any contact info you want for our editor. He'll put it at the end of the show once we edit it. Any Facebook groups or websites or anything?
Yes.
Instagram. That'd be great.
Okay.
And let's do this again, part 2, because there's a lot more to be said, and we want to continue this. So I apologize, but I only have a half an hour with the Zoom technology here that I have at this point. So
I understand. Val, it was nice meeting you, and Mimi, pleasure as always.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Cheers.
Happy trails. Bye.
Take care. Good morning. It's the beginning of day 37. I'm off to a lazy start. I only have 6.5 miles to Kennedy Meadows. It's 7:15, and I just got out of the tent. It's a little cool, but it's not frigid like yesterday. I am in the sun for the last 2 miles, and you can see some structures in the distance. I'm about a mile or mile and a half now. There was a person alongside me. He elected to what's called yellow blaze along the road. You can see him over there, barely moving. So I guess that settles it. Yellow blazing is faster than hiking in the loose sand. Well, there's a river just below me to my left, and you can see the trail going up and then going across, and a little cliff walk action. Lovely. Oh, that'll be my fate in about 20 or 30 minutes, I think. I'm going to try and make it over the river on that log, through that pile of mud, and then another log. We'll see. Well, I made it across the water, and I'm sitting here at the back of a dam. You can see the gravel, and I'm filtering a liter of water. I am home for the night. Going across a bridge, and I think I see some decent tent sites down there near the water. Yay! Hopefully they'll be accessible. Hey, good morning. It's day 60. It's 8:30 in the morning. It's the latest I think I've ever broken camp at. I just was so wasted and tired, and I was still exhausted and sore when I woke up this morning. I still am, but I got to make some miles. I got to go 21.8 to get to the outskirts of Idlewild. Hey, it's 11:45, and no surprise, I've been climbing all morning, and for the first time ever, I'm starting to encounter trees. Now they're dead, they're burnt, but if I look higher up the hill, I see a few living ones. That's inspirational. So, yeah, I'm really excited about getting into the tree line under the presumption there's more shade, because it's hot and sweaty out here, and that's ultimately where I'm going. So, even when I get to the tree line, there is thousands of feet of vertical going up that I still have to cover in the next few hours. It's pretty sobering. So I'm pressing on. This is more pleasant hiking in the woods, although there's an enormous number of gnats, so-called deer gnats, and I still have thousands of feet of vertical before I start heading downhill. I'm at about 7,000 feet. It's windy and cold. It's going to be a cold one tonight if it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.